Why the brain doesn't want you to stay happy. Let's talk about the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. You think the goal is to be happy, but your brain doesn't care about happiness. It cares about survival. And not in the obvious fight or flight kind of way, in the quiet, invisible way, in the way that makes you feel restless right after things go well, or numb in moments that should feel good. That's not failure. That's your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. Because here's the twist. Happiness isn't a state your brain maintains. It's a signal your brain sends to motivate behavior, to reward effort, to create contrast. But once the moment passes, the signal fades. Why? Because staying happy isn't useful for survival, not evolutionarily, not neurologically. You're designed to detect threats, not preserve joy. The brain's reward system, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, these aren't mood stabilizers, they're behavioral reinforcers. They spike, then they vanish, not because something went wrong, but because something worked. The myth that happiness should be constant is a modern distortion, a result of wellness marketing, toxic positivity, and algorithmic culture. Before we go deeper, tap like if this is landing for you and subscribe if you want more videos that don't just hype feelings, but explain them. Your brain is running on hardware built thousands of years ago. It evolved in environments full of danger, scarcity, and unpredictability. In that world, calm meant you missed something. Stillness meant you're not alert. And too much pleasure, that meant vulnerability. So your brain developed a system to pull you back from prolonged contentment, not to sabotage you, but to make sure you stayed aware. And that's still running, even when your life is no longer in physical danger. It's why your mind will invent problems the moment things feel stable. It's why you overthink when things go right. Why you expect the call, the crash, the catch. Not because you're broken, but because your nervous system is optimized for scanning, not settling. And so the more you chase permanent happiness, the more broken you feel because you're trying to sustain something your biology is designed to let go of. Happiness fades, not because you did something wrong, but because your brain is doing something right. You're not wired to hold on to joy, you're wired to notice it and then reset. This isn't a glitch, it's an efficiency. Neuroscience calls it hedonic adaptation. The more frequently you experience something pleasurable, the less intense the response becomes. Not because it matters less, but because your brain stops flagging it as new. That surge you feel after a win, it's a spike. A chemical flare, dopamine, norepinephrine, oxytocin, lighting up your system to say, something good just happened, pay attention. But attention has a price, and maintaining elevated brain states takes energy, so your system conserves. It resets you to baseline, even if your life is objectively better than it was before. That's why a new job, a new relationship, a big achievement, all eventually fade into emotional background noise. Not because you're ungrateful, because your brain stopped treating it as urgent. It's threat that keeps your system alert. Happiness tells it, mission accomplished. So if you're chasing sustained happiness, you're chasing a chemical event your brain is actively neutralizing. This is why so many people think they're broken, when in reality, they're just neurologically adapted. Even pleasure becomes invisible if repeated enough. But here's where it gets more complex. Modern systems, social media, short-form content, hyper-rewards, gamified apps are designed to exploit this neurochemical cycle. They give you microbursts of dopamine in exchange for attention, time, behavior. And because the brain resets so quickly, you're left in a loop craving the next hit, blaming yourself for not feeling better, and losing your sense of meaning in the process. Happiness becomes not just fleeting, but something external you try to earn, collect, or optimize. That's not your fault. It's a system calibrated to hijack your biology. And if you never learn how this works, you'll keep thinking you need to fix yourself, when the real issue is that your brain and your environment are no longer on the same page. You don't need to trick your brain into being happy. You need to understand what it values. The brain isn't seeking joy, it's scanning for relevance, for cues that signal meaning, progress, safety, or alignment. When something is relevant, your system lights up. When it's just pleasurable, it flickers and then fades. So the real work isn't about chasing highs. It's about training your brain to notice what matters even when it doesn't feel intense. That's how long-term emotional stability works. Not through constant excitement, but through layered, low-friction meaning. Your system craves something deeper than happiness. It craves coherence. Coherence is when your thoughts, actions, environment, and identity are pointing in the same direction. You're not split between who you are and who you're pretending to be. You're not burning energy masking, editing, or managing perception. In that state, your nervous system relaxes. Your mind quiets. You're not high, but you're not searching. And here's what most people never realize. You can feel miserable in success if it's misaligned with your values. You can feel whole in discomfort if your identity and actions are coherent. This is how people survive hardship with grace and how others fall apart inside privilege. Because your brain isn't scoring your life, it's reading for fit. And when your internal signals match your external actions, your baseline recalibrates, not to happiness, but to clarity. This is how we stop trying to feel good and start creating conditions where feeling whole is actually possible. Not through positive thinking, not through dopamine hacking, but through conscious patterning. Noticing when you're acting out of fear. Saying no to what stretches you thin. Telling the truth when silence would feel safer. Pausing before seeking artificial rewards. Letting joy pass through you without grabbing it. Because your brain can learn to recognize safety, but it needs you to stop chasing symptoms and start cultivating conditions. And maybe now you're wondering, does that mean I can never really feel happy? Not exactly. You can be happy, but not in the way you were taught. Happiness was never meant to be a permanent state. It was meant to be a signal, a moment that says, you're aligned, you're safe, you're okay, for now. The problem isn't that happiness fades. The problem is we think it shouldn't. So we panic, we chase, we hack dopamine, and we forget that real happiness, the kind that lasts. Absence of internal conflict, absence of urgency, absence of bracing. It feels like stillness you don't want to escape. So how do you get there? You stop asking, how do I stay happy, and start asking, what keeps pulling me out of peace? Happiness doesn't grow where your nervous system feels unsafe. It grows where you stop betraying yourself in small ways. Saying yes when you mean no. Chasing praise instead of alignment. Numbing instead of noticing. Overriding stillness with constant achievement. You don't need a mood spike. You need a nervous system that believes you're safe enough to rest. Because when your brain no longer sees your life as a threat, you don't have to try to feel happy. And that's the shift. Happiness isn't a peak to hold, it's the natural rhythm that returns when your system stops scanning for danger. If this video shifted something for you, hit like to let your algorithm know. And subscribe for more grounded breakdowns like this. No fluff, no recycled advice, just real insight. This content is for education and storytelling, not therapy or medical advice. If you're struggling, reach out to a qualified professional. You don't have to do